NICTA says unregistered SIM cards will be deactivated. Landowners threaten pipeline shutdown over delayed benefits. And families told to vacate homes.
This is the National EMTV News with Helen Sayer.
NICTA says unregistered SIM cards will be deactivated. Landowners threaten pipeline shutdown over delayed benefits. And families told to vacate homes.
This is the National EMTV News with Helen Sayer.
Good evening and thanks for joining us for Saturday's news. All unregistered SIM cards will be deactivated following the recent dismissal of a Supreme Court reference. The National Information Communication Technology Authority has been tasked to immediately start the exercise to deactivate. NICTA aims to complete deactivation by March 31st, 2020. The Department of Communications, Information and Technology has released a statement saying it will support the deactivation exercise for all unregistered SIM cards in Papua New Guinea. The deactivation process will run for over 8 weeks, commencing yesterday. In April 2016, all mobile phone users were advised to register their SIM cards with their mobile phone operators, following the gazetting of the 2016 SIM card registration regulation. Between 2016 and 2019, a number of extensions were given to telecommunication companies to allow more customers to register their SIM cards. Much of the delay was because many mobile phone users live in rural communities and were not able to produce some form of identification upon registration. A Supreme Court reference was filed by the Ombudsman Commission in January 2019, contesting the legality of the SIM card registration regulation. That Supreme Court reference was recently dismissed, and now NICTA is going ahead with the deactivation exercise. Thaklagunga, National EMTV News. Gas pipeline landowners in Kikori have threatened to shut down valves come Monday. Frustrated landowners told EMTV for about 10 years the Gulf Provincial Government and the Mineral Resource Development Corporation has pushed them around and denied them benefits. They claim 16 million kina in royalty and other benefits have not been paid, and no tangible development has taken place in this part of Gulf Province.
Speaking on behalf of the affected 96 clans, the three leaders in the Segment 7 of the PNG LNG pipeline expressed the concerns of delayed benefits. They say landowners have been spectators for too long and have been kicked around by the state and trustee MRDC. They question the use of 16 million kina that is entitled to them every year since 2010.
And yet we still sit down there like nobody want to know about us. That's very sad. Whereas you are using our land, we're giving that right to you, and what is that you are giving back to us?
According to the landowners, about 120 million kina as benefits is entitled to pipeline landowners. Of that, 16 million kina is to be paid per annum. Countless efforts to pocket that money out from MRDC and Gulf Provincial Government has been a struggle for them. No financial record from authorities is also a concern for the landowners.
The governor and the administrator and the government too, to consider paying the project funds. And somehow they might be misusing the funds on the side.
The Segment 7 pipeline landowners believe they have been overlooked and denied from their rightful benefits. They are calling on the different levels of government, including MRDC, to explain the benefits.
And whatever is due, please Can you tell us right now what is happening, where is the money, and pay us so that we can all benefit?
We are frustrated about services not being down there. Our equities are not being received at a timely manner where you agreed upon to do that. That is not happening.
A peaceful strike is planned for Monday, the 3rd of February. The leaders say clans are preparing to shut down gas valves at the oil search camp at Kopi Base.
Monday, there is going to be a march up at Kopi Base that is going to be put on stop. And government has to come down clear on that.
Jack Lepave Jr., National EMTV News.
EMTV has reached out for a response from the Gulf provincial government, and we hope to give you an update in due course. Families of retired PNGDF members who have been told to move out of the houses they occupy at Murray Barracks say they were not properly served eviction notices. For some, it has been 20 years since their fathers were retrenched and they are yet to receive their entitlements. Angry mothers aired their grievances at Murray Barracks yesterday.
These are families of retired PNGDF soldiers and seamen who have served the Defence Force in the early 1970s to 1990s. Some have been involved in the Kumul Force operation to Vanuatu in the 1980s, while others served in the Bougainville crisis.
Army without this law, no one from money people holy, or come rousing people nothing without money. How? Why people go out? So man have 2001 they finish. Or give 500 kina. Without this 500 kina dog, 2 munta so. You can get some money. Enough because all army straight in you. Chief you pay go. Man have chief warrant officer. Kiribe. So inside of this land, he come in up now look at what for something. All army walking. So I talk from me.
To appeal to our Honorable Prime Minister of Papua New Guinea, Mr. James Marape, please, we stand here as one to appeal to you to intervene this eviction exercise that is going on in the barracks. We are not sure if you are aware of this exercise or not, but the eviction taking place is very inhuman. As some of us, we all grown-up kids, some of us live with the parents, some of us outside. But what they have done to our parents is very inhuman. So we kindly ask the Prime Minister to step in and assist with. Most of these fathers have served that back or even brought this country to where it is now, the independent state of Papua New Guinea.
Most have been retrenched in the year 2000 and many have died while waiting for their entitlements. Their families continue to occupy houses at the army barracks on the understanding that they will move out once they receive their entitlements. However, they have waited for at least 20 years. On Thursday this week, they were told to move out immediately, but no notices were given and no word on when they will be able to receive their entitlements. EMTV News has contacted the PNGDF headquarters in Port Moresby for an official response to this issue.
When they came in with 2 loads of vehicle, one an empty one with the driver and the upside, narapla and green pla, big pla car, one time also yes. And we were asked to move yesterday. They demanded us to move out. If you guys don't move out tonight, this evening, Mipla forcefully move you guys out, regardless of what. Namito, Mipla moving Mipla out. Mipla no kissing me eviction notice. There's nothing in black and white. So how can we move out when you guys haven't issued us any eviction notice? And this is what they said. Mipla stop. Mipla go nak bambla come back afternoon ken, which they came back in the afternoon around 4:30. Only come now. They only come sana pandanitlo house, and they were all like wanting us to move out. But almost looking more say Mipla, we weren't prepared for the movement. Only talking Mipla stop. Mipla by come back 8 o'clock morning, and we will forcefully move you guys out of the house.
Me married late warrant after Stephen Kaikere. Me like him also peaceful eviction. All kissing man blah me la place no good blah me to play come. Kissing me go back la place no good blah me. Peaceful, not
forceful.
Thekla Gunga, National EMTV News.
The Western Provincial Government presented a budget of 387 million kina to the Treasury Department yesterday. Governor Taboy Awiyoto says the budget is guided by past development challenges and experiences of the availability of government funding. Governor Yoto said key sectors are health, education, infrastructure and law and order.
Speaking prior to the presentation of the budget books, Western Governor Taboy Awiyoto says the budget is basically to improve and extend government services to parts of the province. The Western budget is a whopping 387 million kina for 2020. 230 million kina will come from the national government's purse. Governor Yoto says 154 million kina is the intended internal revenue based on past performance. Meanwhile, he expressed concerns of the untimely release of government funding to provincial governments. Treasurer Ian Lingstaki was straight the budget will be vetted by the department. The Treasurer also was briefed about shortfalls within the last 5 years, but assures to work with the Western Provincial Government.
I'm happy to accept your budget as normal. I'll forward that to the department. They'll make their assessments and respond to you as soon as we can. Yeah, and we can meet, sit down later.
Jack Lepave Jr., National EMTV News.
Police have put behind bars a man suspected of killing another man in Port Moresby yesterday. The perpetrator was caught by members of the public after they realized the 19-year-old victim fell to the ground with stab wounds. Witnesses say the suspect was fleeing the murder scene when they chased him down and apprehended him. The incident occurred at the Connie Tigers Oval near the main Waigani bus stop area. Police officers from the NCD Fox unit responded and took the suspect to the station. Meanwhile, the body of the deceased was taken to the morgue. The motive of the murder is yet to be established. You're watching National EMTV News. When we come back, the latest on the coronavirus and efforts to bring home PNG students studying in Wuhan City. Details after the break. Welcome back. The World Health Organization has declared the coronavirus as a global emergency as more countries declare their first cases of the virus. The death toll in China is now 249, with 45 new deaths reported. Businesses are also scaling back their operations in China as airlines suspend flights to and from the mainland.
This neighbourhood is thousands of kilometres from Wuhan, but they're locking down in fear of the virus. Local residents here in China's north have built roadblocks, and they're stopping strangers from coming in.
We can't let in an outsider because we don't know where they've come from. If we let in one infected person, the whole village would be ruined. This is no joke.
It's the same in villages and neighbourhoods across the country. This man also says no outsiders are allowed. Here in the capital, Beijing, people are taking matters into their own hands too. They're using whatever they can find, in this case share bikes, to block the entrances of residential compounds and keep outsiders out. With more than 100 cases in the capital, including a death so far, it's little wonder people here too are desperate to stop the virus spreading. In Wuhan itself, the streets remain deserted, but in the wards they're busy and understaffed, with reports patients are having to be turned away. Work continues on 2 new hospitals, purpose-built for the crisis, with 1,000 beds each. And foreigners are fleeing. A plane load of American diplomats and their families has landed back on US soil. Japan's second evacuation flight in 2 days also touched down in Tokyo, just as news broke that 3 passengers from an earlier flight tested positive to the virus. 2 of those patients had no symptoms. In London, the last British Airways flight from China lands at Heathrow. The airline has suspended all direct flights in and out of the mainland. Other carriers, including Cathay Pacific and Jetstar Asia, are slashing services. Qantas says it's monitoring the situation, as is the World Health Organization, which says the whole world needs to be on alert.
I'm declaring a public health emergency of international concern over the global outbreak of novel coronavirus. The main reason for this declaration is not because of what is happening in China, but because of what is happening in other countries.
Nobody here knows how long the outbreak will last, how far it will spread, and how many lives it will claim. A nervous wait for those trapped at the epicentre and beyond.
There's been no confirmation from either the Australian government or Qantas of the reports a flight could be arriving in Wuhan on Monday to evacuate some 140 Australians stranded there. They are expected to be flown to Christmas Island for a quarantine period. While the number of confirmed cases continues to rise, Australians in Wuhan are weighing up whether they'll take the opportunity to leave.
As more details come out about the Morrison government's evacuation plan, a big question is how many Australians in Wuhan and Hubei province will take up the offer. About 140 of them have registered their interest with the Department of Foreign Affairs, but that's of a total of 600 citizens and permanent residents who are now in that epicentre area. And I was speaking to one man this evening who actually is about an hour or so away from Wuhan in another city. He said he's not interested. He thinks it will be too difficult for him and his family to get to Wuhan, given that there are currently roadblocks in place in that area. Another woman who has children, she says that many of the Australians there are concerned about how much time they would spend in the air on planes.
Because I talked to a lot of Australian citizens in Wuhan as well. They are like me because I have 3 young kids, 1 7-year-old, 2 3-year-olds. They're twins as well. So I'm really worried that we're going to be infected on the flight, because the flight probably takes a couple of hours to Christmas Island. What would be the quarantine policies in place or quarantine plans in place during the flight? We don't know so far.
Here in China, the measures to contain the coronavirus outbreak are continuing to expand, not just in central China where the epicentre is. Up here in Beijing, for example, it's now almost impossible if you're not a resident of a compound to go in. No guests, no couriers allowed. Nobody wants outsiders because everyone is anxious about whether or not somebody could be from Wuhan or could have been exposed. And overseas, we're seeing even more restrictive measures being rolled out. The Japanese, for example, will no longer allow any Chinese passport holders from Hubei province to go into Japan. The Singaporeans, they've gone one step further. They've announced they're not allowing any Chinese passport holders to visit or transit through Singapore. And over here in China, this is creating a fair bit of concern that discrimination towards Chinese is growing overseas because of the coronavirus outbreak.
And back home, the Health Department and National Airport Corporation, NAC, are working closely to screen passengers entering the country. The media was given a walk through these primary screening measures at the arrivals lounge at the Jacksons International Airport. Meanwhile, the Acting Secretary for Health, Dr. Paisen Dakulala, said the Australian government may evacuate PNG and other Pacific Island students out of Wuhan City. Currently, there are 21 PNG students in Wuhan City awaiting to leave. EMTV has been told that the students have been directed to not speak to PNG media, and we are unable to confirm if they're aware of evacuation plans in place.
With their citizens, and they've extended these to the Pacific Islanders, including PNG. And so the discussion continues on with them as we go through that process, especially from that particular setting, Wuhan, where it's happened. But that discussion is with the key stakeholders, like I said, DFAT, with us, as well as the Foreign Affairs. And so we get the right information and right process to get that through. From what I know, the reports that have come in, the indications are China is already managing. And as you heard from our WR, China is already on track. The management of this epidemic or this outbreak in China is first class. It's already done well. It's not so much them, but it's what's outside that we have to step up and deal with that right now as we speak. And so they're managing, and the indications that I get or that we get is that our students that are and our citizens that are in China right now, they've been cared for and they are being protected, if you like, with the necessary support that's been given. And our own foreign affairs are linking up with each one of those citizens and students that are there.
The Madang Provincial Health Authority has put together a team of experts with access to the point of entries for people coming into Madang. The team will put together a plan on how to counter the virus if and when a case is found in the province. Dr. Semi Thomas, who is heading the team, says Madang has the highest number of Chinese living and working outside of Port Moresby. This is due to a number of multi-billion companies such as Ramoniko and RD Tuna that has attracted people to travel in and out of the province daily.
Coronavirus may not come to Madang, but at least because we have a high concentration of Asians in the country, we are putting a plan together so that if something happens, we can respond to it in a more appropriate way. So there's a lot of us, about 20 of us together in the team. And the reason for that is because the hospital gets the endpoint. Okay, the entrance is through these people, and if they do their job well, then we'll be able to control it. If they don't do their job well, then we get sick people coming in, and that's where the thing starts to spread. So for them is to prevent it. We only can treat a certain amount of patients. And we are trying to prepare for we can have a place where we can put them together. The hospital is more a quarantine place where we put them and look after them. The actual work takes outside. And that's where the port services and New Guinea and the mining team and people come together. These guys will help us a lot. If they don't do the work properly, then it makes it hard for us.
In other news, a senior police officer in Madang says the province needs local policemen to provide efficient policing in communities. Officer in charge of the Criminal Investigation Unit, Chief Inspector Stephen Yalamu, says Madang has become known for all the wrong reasons and police cannot meet public obligation due to limited resources and manpower. The remarks were directed at Police Commissioner David Manning and Police Minister Brian Kramer during their visit to the province recently.
Questions on the lack of police resources in Madang were put to the Police Minister Brian Kramer by members of the Madang-based police during his recent visit to the province, accompanied by the Police Commissioner David Manning. During the question and answer time, Chief Inspector Stephen Yalamu from the CID section asked a list of questions that center around limited resources that the Madang police are facing. Yalamu told Kramer there is a high expectation from the communities for local police to deliver an efficient and effective community policing both day and night. He says the Madang police is willing to perform its duty if they are given the much needed support they need in terms of resources, logistics and fuel.
You as a Minister for Police, and a member of Madang, what is your immediate plan now to resurrecting operations, administration, and operational functions from Madang Police?
Police Minister Brian Kramer said a 2 million kina funding from the Madang District Improvement Fund will be allocated for law and order under the Sector Patrol Program. Kramer says his two priority areas are law and order and roads. The Police Minister told the men and women who gathered that the funding is available, but it may not bring a solution to the problem that they are facing. He says he wants to see discipline and respect amongst the local police first before funds can be released. Kramer says he wants to make sure the funds allocated are used for its intended purposes and nothing else.
And law and order, I said, was a priority, and road are priorities. So there are two priorities that will take preference over these 20. This year, not about 10 million by come, unless the government runs out of money. Yes? So not about budget funding.
Police Commissioner David Manning said Madang is amongst few other provinces that are facing challenges in terms of managing law and order issues. Manning says the police headquarters will be focusing on Madang, Kimbe, Alatau and a number of other provinces in developing policing strategies that will provide stability in law and order issues in the communities.
So we're working with the provincial police commanders, the divisional commanders, to make sure that those plans are constantly reviewed, and once they're implemented, we'll see a marked improvement in the safety and security of the communities within those urban centres as well as provinces.
Meanwhile, the police commissioner also asked local policemen and women to be disciplined and respect other officers in order to regain the lost public confidence in the police force. Manning also appealed to the communities to respect members of the RPNGC. It is understood a reinforcement call was made by the police minister earlier to get support from the Leh and Goroka-based mobile squad to be deployed to Madang. But the police commissioner says that depends on the requirements of the operations. Martha Lewis, National EMTV News, Madang.
Ayora National High School in the Eastern Highlands will welcome over 800 students nationwide to its campus next week. Ranked second in the country, the National High School has increased its annual intake by 50 students. The school's main focus for this year is proper equipment for information technology. School Principal Carl Puluma says they want to have a well-established IT system. The school already bought about 70 computers and they have another year of free internet provided by PNG Dataco. Mr. Puluma says the way forward is to strengthen the cabling systems into dormitories, staff residential areas and the main offices, encouraging online teaching. Education Minister Joseph Yopiopi pledged 1 million kina to fully furnish the school's new chemistry and IT building launched last year. However, this has not yet been fulfilled. You're with National EMTV News. More bushfires in Australia and 4 men face execution in India for the rape and murder of a young woman. Details in news making headlines overseas when we come back. Welcome back to the news. Turning overseas, bushfires have flared up on the ridges south of Canberra, Australia's capital. Residents have been told to prepare for the worst and to act swiftly in case they need to evacuate.
But as you can see at the moment, it's quite clear. And that's because overnight the fire has pushed very slowly to the southeast, away from here. But that will change as today wears on.
So Liz, what is the advice to residents at this stage?
To be very vigilant, to be ready with their fire plan, whether they're going to stay or go, and to be ready for the changing situation. Now, in places like Thawa, that's got a whole new edge to it. Those people are very likely to feel an impact from the fire. In places like Banks and Conda, the outer southern suburbs of Canberra, it's a little bit different because here there might be ember attacks. But the one thing the authorities are telling people is when you make your plan, bear in mind that there might be a fire, you might call the firefighters and they might not be able to come. So today will be a bit of a tense day around here, I would say.
Let's talk about the weather conditions. I know hot conditions will be making it very hard for firefighters. Just tell us a bit more about what they can expect.
Well, I think the heat is the main thing, and the dryness. The wind will play a little bit of a role. One of the concerns has been that the fire could become erratic, and so they won't know, which way it's going. So that's what they're up against. One of the interesting things about this fire has been that firefighters have had very little access to the fire front, and they've had to rely a lot on water bombers. And that's because it's been burning in very inaccessible country. But if it starts to have an impact on the farms to the south of here and Thawa village, that might change a bit because that's much flatter and less inaccessible country. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens there. But in that area, people have been expecting a fire for quite some time and they've been ready. So they will be the residents will be playing a bit of a role in fighting the fire.
4 men are scheduled to be hanged in India for the rape and murder of a young woman on a bus to New Delhi. The attack in 2012 prompted nationwide protests in a country where a woman is raped on average every 15 minutes. Activists hope the execution will help curb the high rate of violence against women.
In Delhi's western suburbs, more than a dozen men and women have gathered to demand the execution of 4 men over the rape and murder of a young woman.
They should have been hanged earlier.
This candlelight vigil has been held every night for over a month. Tonight, the victim's mother is also here.
Wherever I go, people ask, how am I able to fight this long battle? I say it's because of the support I'm getting from everywhere.
The 2012 rape and bashing of the college student on a bus in New Delhi shocked the nation, prompting mass protests. The victim, who cannot be identified for legal reasons, died 2 weeks after the brutal attack. She's since been dubbed Nabaya, which means fearless in Hindi.
It was my daughter's last wish that these men should be burned to death or hanged so that no other girl would face what she had.
Today, the case continues to attract huge media attention as India's notoriously slow and complex legal system deals with appeal after appeal. But for every rape that attracts scrutiny, there are many more that do not. The last hanging for such a crime was 15 years ago. It's for these reasons anti-rape activists want the 4 men hanged.
If these people are not hanged, who else will be hanged? These butchers or monsters deserve to be hanged.
These hangings are intended to send a message to try and curb the high rate of violence against women. But it's simply not working. The latest government data from 2018 shows there were more than 33,000 reported rapes in this country. That's 1 every 15 minutes.
The sexual offenders carry a feeling that they can get away, and it is only the fools and only the stupid who get caught.
Psychologist Rajat Mitra used to work in prisons dealing with sex offenders. Today, he helps victims navigate a justice system he says lacks compassion.
It is at a personal discretion of the police officer or the judge that whether you are sensitive or not.
An approach that makes stopping violence against women a tough task.
Donald Trump has released his long-awaited Middle East peace plan, which aims to solve one of the world's longest-running conflicts. The U.S. president claims it's a win for both the Israelis and Palestinians, but he's not even on speaking terms with the Palestinian leadership, which has already denounced the plan.
At the White House, the president was joined by one of his favourite prime ministers to unveil a peace plan that fulfills many of Israel's aspirations.
I can say it will work. It's going to work. If they do this, it will work.
Donald Trump called it a realistic two-state solution, even tweeting a proposed map of what a future Palestinian nation could look like with a capital in East Jerusalem.
Mr. President, your deal of the century is the opportunity of the century. And rest assured, Israel will not miss this opportunity.
But many Palestinians say it's not a serious plan, but a take-it-or-leave-it political pact that frames all contentious issues in Israel's favour and would force them to accept Jewish settlements in the occupied West Bank. There were protests even before it was announced and some clashes between protesters and Israeli soldiers.
After the nonsense that we heard today, we say 1,000 no's to the deal of the century.
In the 2 decades since the Oslo Accord was signed, Middle East peace negotiations have repeatedly broken down, and few give this latest proposal much chance of long-term success. Critics also question the timing of today's announcement. It came shortly after Mr. Netanyahu was indicted on corruption charges and while Mr. Trump is in the midst of an impeachment trial.
Senior administration officials here say they expected Palestinian opposition to this proposal and are still hopeful they'll come to the negotiating table sometime over the next 4 years. The president today warned that if they don't, they might lose their final opportunity for statehood.
You're watching National EMTV News. Up next, some sporting updates in Chukai Sports.
Chukai Sports.
Welcome to Chukai Sports. SBPNG Hunters coach Matthew Church is looking forward to the trial match against the Central Queensland Capras on the 22nd of this month. He has been working hard with his recruits to map out a game plan for the trial match. Church has also been pushing for all the players to cope with his training program, which is purely in English.
A lot of fans are looking at SBPNG Hunters coach Matthew Church to deliver a good season after the team failed miserably in 2019, finishing the season in second last place. The upcoming trial match on the 22nd of February against the Central Queensland Capras in Port Moresby will be the first glimpse of the Hunters in action under coach Matthew Church. Church says he's looking forward to the trial match.
The trial matches are trial matches, and I actually coached the Falcons in a trial match last year, so but this being my own team, I'll be definitely looking forward to it. I'm not daunted by any way, shape or form.
Church says the team is solely committed to the cause, with Church finding a solution to having players to clearly understand his directions. He has been relying on writing down instructions and explaining to the players.
When I write stuff down is probably when I get them the best. So I've been I take whiteboards to training, and so that's been really good. But like putting that into practice, once we learn a skill, we've just been able to them carry it out. They're dedicated in doing that. So they've been getting good at growing and learning.
Church has been pushing for players to understand his coaching, specifically his coaching in English. Before arriving, he was contemplating learning Tok Pisin to try and use it to coach. But he figured if the players want to play internationally in Australia or England, they have to learn English.
Our end goal is to strengthen our national side as well. So that means more people on the international stage. So you kind of, I guess, initially I thought I'd come here and learn Pidgin and coach in Pidgin, and I've had to change a mindset to a degree. Because if we want these guys going to Wayne Bennett or Craig Bellamy or Trent Robinson, they're not going to coach them in Pidgin. So we need to advance them so that when they get there, they're not out of depth, and we don't want to see them going there and coming back because they've feeling isolated and they don't know the language. So we can use this at my platform here as a Hunters coach as a stopgap for that.
Fidelis Sukina, National EMTV Sports.
The sporting world has been left in mourning after the death of basketball legend Kobe Bryant, along with his daughter, in a helicopter crash in Southern California. Bryant won 5 NBA championships and 2 Olympic gold medals and was regarded as one of the greatest players of all time.
This smouldering wreckage on a hill north of Los Angeles sent shockwaves across America. 9 people were on board the helicopter when it went down, among them Kobe Bryant.
Bryant, windshield wiper, back, forth, lay it up and in with the left hand.
One of the nation's best-known sports stars, and his 13-year-old daughter, Gianna. They were on their way to one of her basketball tournaments.
This news is so shocking that we had to come and confirm. I heard a helicopter and it just sounded very loud, like it was flying too low. And then I heard like a loud thud, and then you just hear nothing.
Investigators are now trying to work out what caused this crash, while thousands of fans are trying to come to terms with their loss, flocking to the LA Lakers home arena where Bryant took centre stage for 20 years. Coaches, players and opponents spoke of their shock and sadness.
I just don't have a lot to say. The news is just devastating to everybody who known him a long time.
Tributes also flowed on social media. Barack Obama was one of the first to express his grief, saying Kobe was a legend on the court and just getting started in what would have been just as meaningful a second act. From the Lakers family, Magic Johnson wrote, "My mind is racing. I'm in disbelief and have been crying all morning." And talk show host Ellen DeGeneres said she was stunned and saddened by the news.
Bryant going baseline, and he lays it in.
Bryant became an icon by winning 5 NBA titles with the Lakers and 2 gold medals with the US Olympic team.
He burned so competitively hot, and the desire to win. He brought it each and every night on both ends of the floor.
His career survived a few off-court controversies, including a sexual assault case in 2003. By the time he retired in 2016, he was the third highest NBA point scorer of all time, only passed at the weekend by LeBron James, who was in tears and consoled by teammates after hearing the news.
A tragedy has befallen the world of basketball.
At events across the nation today, people paused in stunned silence as America tried to process the surprise death of a man whose fame spans sport and US culture.
Chukai Sports continues with a wrap-up of sporting action abroad. Stay with us.
Chukai Sports.
Welcome back to Chukai Sports. A wrap-up of sporting news abroad, beginning with tennis, and Novak Djokovic is in the Australian Open men's final after he beat Alexander Zverev in 4 sets. He lost the first set but eventually defeated his opponent 3-6, 6-4, 7-6, 7-6 in a close encounter.
Number 5 lost the first set, but eventually defeated Zverev 3-6, 6-4, 7-6, 7-6 in a close encounter that lasted 3 hours and 42 minutes. Team will now compete in his 3rd Grand Slam final, but his first outside of the clay courts at the French Open, where he lost the last 2 deciders to Rafael Nadal. Earlier in the day, Kristina Mladenovic and Timea Babos took out the women's doubles title in straight sets.
I won, I think, more of the last encounters than he did, but I think it doesn't count so much. It's absolutely his comfort zone here. I mean, he always plays his best tennis in Australia since many years, so I'm expecting that as well in the finals.
It was a great match. He played some very high-level tennis. He was the best opponent I played this week, so credit to him. He deserves to be in the final. I think he has a chance in the final as well. If he's physically fine, because he did play a lot of long matches. But yeah, we'll see.
Sydney will host next weekend's Big Bash final. The Melbourne Stars' poor finals record continued after they lost to the Sydney Sixers by 43 runs in the qualifier. The Sixers, led by a 34-run effort from Josh Philippe, finished with figures of 7 for 142. In response, the Stars, who finished first at the end of the regular season, were bowled out for just 99. Sean Abbott took 3 for 23 as the Stars failed to fire on their home turf. The home side have made 8 of the 9 final series, but never won the competition. They'll now get a second chance when they play the winner of the Adelaide Strikers v Sydney Thunder match. Sydney FC continued to dominate the A-League. The Sky Blues extended their unbeaten run in the competition to 12 matches after they beat the Brisbane Roar 1-0. Chances were at a premium for both sides until Scott Neville was given his 2nd yellow card for a handball in the box in the 56th minute. Adam Lafondra converted the chance to put the Sky Blues in front and extend his Golden Boot lead to 2 goals. The Roar had a late chance to level the scores despite being a man down, but they couldn't convert. The win means Sydney FC now lead the competition by 13 points.
Maybe a little bit unlucky with decision. I think the clarification with the penalty, arms away from the body. For me, he's defending. It's not in an unnatural position. So I think we need clarity on that. But maybe the first half with the ball crossed the line. I don't know. It could have been given. But yeah, even with 10 men, we took it to the Sydney. And perhaps a little bit unfortunate that we never got a little bit more out of the game.
The Brumbies Super Rugby season is off to a winning start. The ACT side fought off the Queensland Reds and 39-degree heat to win the first match of the season in Australia. The Reds looked the better team at half-time and raced out to a 17-7 lead, but the Brumbies found their groove in the second half. The home side scored 20 unanswered points, including 3 tries to race away to a 27-24 victory. Brumbies coach Dan McKellar slammed Super Rugby officials after the match, saying the decision to start the season in January in such high temperatures showed no respect for player welfare. The finals picture is becoming a little clearer in the NBL. The Cairns Taipans wrapped up a spot in the finals after defeating the Illawarra Hawks 99-75. The Taipans had lost their last 3 games against the last-placed Hawks, but made light work of the visitors. DJ Newbill finished with 20 points, ensuring the Taipans remain in 3rd position. Earlier, the 6th-placed New Zealand Breakers kept their finals hopes alive, defeating Adelaide 113-89. The Breakers then sunk 20 of their 37 three-point attempts and are now just one win behind the Brisbane Bullets.
And that ends True Kai Sports. The weather details when we come back.
True Kai Sports. True Kai Sports.
This weather update is proudly brought to you by Money Plus. With you always.
A look at the weather forecast for tonight and tomorrow in the southern region. Cloudy with a shower or two in Port Moresby, Daru and Popondetta, a shower or two in Kerma and rain showers in Alotau. In the Momasi region, cloudy with a shower or two in Lae, Medang, Wewak and Vanimo. In the New Guinea Islands region, mostly fine weather in Lorengau, fine weather although cloudy in Kavieng, rain showers in Kokopo, Rabaul, Kimbe and rain and thunderstorms in Buka. And in the Highlands region, rain showers right across the region in Mount Hagen, Goroka, Kundiawa, Mendi and Wabeg.
The weather update was proudly brought to you by Money Plus. With you always.
And that's the way it is this Saturday, 1st of February 2020. On behalf of the entire EMTV News team, pleasant viewing, good night.